Good morning. Welcome to the first of what will be many Tribe Digital Marketing office hours. The whole objective of this session is to knowledge share. We are looking to provide as many valuable resources as we can to you and hopefully be somewhat of a cheat for everybody who's watching this video or possibly joining live. I'm joined today by Jamie Kirmess, who is a principal with LeadMD, and Jamie is going to be our expert today, our expert panelist, as we walk through a couple concepts that were submitted by a few people on LinkedIn. Jamie, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, expert. That seems very official.
Oh, super official, super official. All right, so we had two very important topics that were submitted. The format for today, we'll go through one. If you have questions that come up immediately, if you would submit them via the chat, and we'll save them. We might do questions for that topic after that topic. We're planning on spending about 10 minutes per topic, and then you'll have about roughly 5 minutes of questions. If there's something burning, again, throw it in the chat. I'll try to answer it. If you have other topics that we want to do for other sessions, throw them in the chat as well. I'll log them and we can start to keep a running thing of these, and hopefully we can run this type of session weekly and it'll be valuable for folks. All right, so let's jump right in. The first topic was submitted via Meredith Jensen, and she asked, I would love to know how others are navigating nurture campaigns during this crisis. You can no longer set it and forget it. What shifts are marketers making? So Jamie, I know this is a big topic. Maybe you can help us narrow it down a little bit.
Yeah, a topic that is very important and one that I feel very passionately about. So I would say, on the whole, it's hard to give a universal answer for what marketers should do with their nurtures, largely because the nurture should really support your go-to-market strategy. And so the way that you sell your products, who you're engaging with, how they're affected, it depends based on your organizational goals and vision and who you do business with. So I would say that with that in mind, the one thing that I will say that we see across the board is that marketers are really taking the time to pause and think about how their buyers are being affected by this COVID-19 crisis. Because, to Meredith's point, setting it and forgetting it often results in tone-deaf messaging. And, the way that your buyers engaged 2 months ago and what their journey looked like 2 months ago compared to what it looks like today is very different. So, the best marketing team who has an amazing customer journey mapped out, they have a deep understanding of their buyers, has to rethink how their buyer's day has changed, what emotions they're going through, even in how their internal processes have changed. So I would say universally, that's what we're seeing across the board is an opportunity to really talk to customers, talk to your buyers, understand what's affecting them, and then revisit your nurture campaigns. And I actually have some practical examples that I thought through in preparation for this to kind of bring it to life. So as you guys know, like LeadMD works with clients across a lot of different industries. And so we can see a lot of how our clients are reacting just based on their business model. One client that we work with is in the telehealth space. So I don't know if you guys have ever used telehealth, but there's a lot of barriers to entry in that space. People don't really know how telehealth works. They don't know if their insurance covers it. They don't know what telehealth providers treat. So there's just a lot naturally in terms of barriers for adoption of a platform like a telehealth service. Well, as you can imagine, COVID changed that all of those barriers. People are now like, give me my telehealth option because I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want to be near people. I want to talk to a doctor online. So as you can imagine, they're all of a sudden experiencing this huge demand and they only have so many doctors. So in order to preserve that customer experience and make sure that they have enough doctors to service the demand, they actually had to pause their new member onboarding nurture. So they have a nurture that takes place that essentially when somebody signs up they register for the platform originally through their health insurance, it welcomes them to the platform and tells them and educates them all about telehealth. So they actually chose to just pause that nurture entirely. Another option could have been to just say when to use telehealth, right? So instead of sending them, all of this messaging about barriers to entry, they could have changed their messaging to say something about when to use telehealth versus actually going to a doctor amidst this pandemic.
So Jamie, it seems like regardless, there's education needed on both sides, right? if it's the barrier to entry message, you're educating the buyer around how do you get around and circumvent those barriers. In this environment, when they're probably being flooded with requests to use telehealth, there's an educational process of expectation setting, I would think.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way to summarize.
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned another example of things that might be looking at, challenges, reacting to trends in the market. Telehealth was a good example. Do you think there's anything that you mentioned at the very top, buyer journey and understanding the buyer at a deep level? I mean, that seems like a baseline for any marketer. What types of intelligence can you gain, or what are you looking for? Because things have changed, right? It's a constantly dynamic environment. So what can you do to tap into what the buyer's thinking now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is where sales and marketing alignment is so important. So marketers should be constantly talking to their customer success team and to their sales team to understand what conversations are you having with customers, because most of the time your best customers are your best buyers. And so understanding your customers and what they're going through now is hugely important in that upfront nurture creation. And so another example that I wanted to share is like, telehealth is an easy example because it's so impacted by what's going on today. But even if you think about clients that are in the SaaS space, like we have a lot of B2B SaaS clients. We have somebody that's in the sales enablement space, and that's really more of a horizontal sell, right? They're selling to sales teams across multiple verticals. And so the way that a seller in the travel and tourism industry is being affected right now is totally different from the way that a seller in the medical device space or the pharmaceutical space is being impacted right now, right? So you really have to think through, like, what are my segments of buyers and what are they feeling right now? Because the seller in the travel and tourism space has a lot of fear. If their compensation is largely variable, they're probably thinking, how am I going to support my family? They may not have a job. So the message that you bring to somebody like that is different than the seller who's like at an all-time high because their product is in desperate need right now from buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. What you talked about when we were doing some show prep, just the concept of empathy. And I think people talk about that a lot, but I don't know, empathy isn't just saying, I hope you're doing okay. The time is struggling right now. Empathy is really, I know what you're going through right now, and
yes,
I believe I can help you. How do you dig into that mindset of the buyer?
That's such a good question and hard to answer. And I feel like if you really know your buyers, the answer is obvious. So I feel like empathy sometimes can be this blanket, like, buzzword that people use. But if you truly do know your buyers and you know how you can help them, it becomes an easy thing. So you see a lot of B2B companies right now offering free versions of their products. I have a client who's in the employee recognition space who is basically offering ways to keep your employees engaged. They have this platform that basically allows employees to give kudos. And, now that there's a remote workforce, like that type of kudos and culture building is really important. And to give that product away for free because you know that your buyers are all dispersed is super valuable. So there's not really like it doesn't, just because they're giving away their product doesn't mean that that's what you have to do.
Right.
That a lot of people think, oh, I see all these companies giving away their product, I need to do that too. It could be as simple as just calling them up and calling up a customer and saying, how can I help? And
Right.
asking, with no intention there or no sort of desire to make a sale.
Yeah. How do we bring that back to nurture just a little bit? I know we're about on time on the nurture topic, but does nurture always have the same goal?
No, not at all. And I think one of the notions that I wanted to challenge at the beginning of this is that the question that Meredith asked is super timely because now we can't set it and forget it because of everything that buyers are going through. But I would challenge the notion that marketers can ever really set it and forget it with their nurture series. because things are constantly changing in the market. Buyers are constantly, new technologies coming, and they're being impacted in different ways. I have a client who their sales process changed. For example, they found that the sales team found that their sellers were basically waiting to the last minute to open an opportunity. And so the sales management team wanted sellers to open those opportunities sooner in the process. And so as a result of that, marketers have got this nurture in the background that's listening for an opportunity creation. Well, when you've got an opportunity creation a month before the deal's going to get signed compared to 4 months before the deal's going to get signed, that impacts your nurture. So you constantly need to have your finger on the pulse. You need to understand what's going on from a trend perspective with your buyers and also with your internal processes, so that you're not sending messaging that doesn't make sense. Especially for large, complex organizations where, there's a lot of business units that sell different products, and, you're targeting the same buyer. Oftentimes that buyer is inundated by messages from all these different business units who have their own nurtures running in the background versus really looking at that customer journey more holistically and shaping the nurture experience based around that customer journey versus the business unit's product that they're trying to sell.
Yeah, for sure. So I have Christina popped in a little note here to me around building trust as a part of the marketing relationship with your customers. So Christina, do you want to chime in just for a minute here on maybe some examples you've seen of that trusting relationship that marketing is able to build?
Yeah, sure. I think again, it's if you're trying to now go talk to customers who don't actually know you or know your product, or again, you have a good trusting relationship with, it's going to be hard to have those conversations now. But I think that, so again, all along, part of that nurture campaign should be about helping people understand what it is that you offer and why you're there and how you're helping them. Now it's just with a little more of an empathetic twist, if you will, because you already know, you've already convinced them to buy your product. Now the question is, what do they need, like emotionally, and even in their jobs, if they even have a job still. And so I think it's just really important to, again, reevaluate that nurture campaign. And I think most people are I hope most people are at least evaluating them. A lot of them are turning them off in their current form. But really it's just a matter of, I've seen a lot of them, like Farm Girls. Farm Girl Flower does a really good job. She literally is just like, look, this is terrible. We're all going through this. She does these little video snaps. She started doing emails, and now she actually does videos just to really like show. She actually does them in her flower warehouse. So you can really see like there's nothing going on. Like her employees are out of a job. And again, it just builds empathy. So for her, what she's trying to do is get people to like pre-order things and buy gift cards, so that when things come back to normal. So there's some things you can do, but you have to think about, again, like you guys said, what are they going through, both emotionally, personally, and with their career right now.
Think about just the simplicity of that shift, though. Sorry, Jamie. Like from an email message that we traditionally use as marketers to just flipping on your webcam or your cell phone and shooting a video and saying that message, she becomes so much more human at that point.
She did. And you could tell, like, she was like holding back tears. You could see that in the emails. She was trying to show that empathy and trying to show what she and her team were going through. But it wasn't until you saw her face and like she's just trying not to like start bawling that you're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was just going to say, I love the concept of, as a business, asking your customers and buyers for that support. So not, because they rely on you. And if you go away because of this pandemic, if your business can't survive, well, that's hard for your customers in the long run when they're going to need you once this whole thing blows over. And so being honest about, here's how you can, not just how I can help you, but, here's where we're at as a business and the support that we need from our community in order to survive. Like, I think that messaging is, if you can strike the right balance, it's totally acceptable.
So we have one more minute on this topic, and I just wanted to bring up something that I see Bob Blount's on the phone here, and he had brought something up to me, an example during Hurricane Katrina years ago, where a bunch of executive leaders from an organization rallied around what they could bring to support that initiative and that crisis at that time. And Bob, you could probably tell the story a little bit better. So maybe you chime in and give a 1 minute on it. But I thought it was powerful because it came from the leadership up, and what leadership was doing drove the messaging that marketing put in market.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. It was a really interesting time, and there were 3 friends. We all had very different disciplines and walk of life. One guy was a reverse logistics person, and that's a very critical element in a time of crisis. The other one was a communications guy, and the third guy was a marketer. And we wanted to go to the hot zone where we could help and bring our skills. And so packed up and told these stories and really created a series of different videos to tell the story of the journey, because we were going into spaces where you didn't know where you were driving, whether it was going to be flooded or not. And so we brought our skills. We hooked up with the local shelters and different organizations and just jumped right in, rolling our sleeves up to help them out. And it really informed kind of what we were capturing from a content perspective back to marketing, so that they could actually tell and amplify the story in really unique ways.
Yeah, I love that message. And I love the leadership approach to it, you know, and marketing may not be about your product right now, right? It may be about the message you're putting in market. So I just thought that was a super powerful story, and I appreciate you sharing it. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit. And the second question comes from Shilpi. And she says, how does a company with hardly any budget and negligible ABM maturity test an ABM campaign, and what marketing tools do they need to do so? That's a big one.
Yeah.
I know that it's not an easy answer, but I also know that you've been working on a lot of this type of stuff in the recent history. So maybe you can guide us a little bit here, Jamie.
I have, and I actually, Josh, you and I worked with somebody about a year ago who had this same exact question for us, if you remember. They were in the healthcare space. Mm-hmm. And I would say that good ABM doesn't mean fancy mugs with specific logos or like really, awesome gifts, although that's what marketers tend to make it out to be. So I think that there's just a misconception around what a good foundational ABM strategy is and what it can do for your business. So I think it really boils down to this. Number one, you have to have a good understanding of your ideal customer profile. And your ideal customer profile, it's not going to change based on the pandemic, but your target account list might. I mean, there are some cases where an ICP changes, but for the most part, your ideal customers are going to remain your ideal customers. But the types of customers that you prioritize and that you go to market one-to-one or one-to-few against may change just due to what's going on right now. So, and that example that I shared earlier with the sales enablement tool, they may focus on people who are in travel and tourism right now. Even if they're not buying, they might say, this is somebody that we want to invest in so that when times change, this market knows that we're here for them. Or they may say, we're really going to invest in med device right now or telehealth or whatever it is, because that industry is booming and that they're still spending. So you have to be agile enough to look at your target account list and make sure that marketing and sales is aligned on that. I would also, especially with limited budget, choose more of a one-to-few approach versus a one-to-one approach if you can, or, depending on how many accounts are on your account list. Obviously, if you've got a market of 50 companies, you could probably do one-to-one marketing. Most companies have a bigger list than that. So I would try to find accounts that cluster together naturally so that the content, the offers that you create can be scalable. Scalable to a few accounts versus just one account. And then I would also encourage people to take a look at what you already have. So what content do you already have? We talked about the concept of what can you offer right now that's valuable. So if you don't have something existing that you can repurpose to make valuable, think about what is the most valuable thing that I can help these customers with or buyers with right now, and lead with that. Regarding the tools, I think LinkedIn Navigator is a good one that you need. But beyond like the basic marketing automation tool and CRM, I think everything else is more of an optimization and nice to have. but really you can get a lot done with a good team of people, a CRM, a marketing automation tool, and a good like account research tool like LinkedIn Navigator.
Yeah, I like LinkedIn Navigator just from the alert standpoint and being able to cluster, and to use your point around adjusting your ICP or your target account list, Navigator is a super easy way to create subsets of the list that already exist. So you might say, tier A ICP, but now, during COVID, we're targeting medical devices, an example. So you can easily create subsets, create new alerts, get new news feeds and things like that, and base your messages off of relevant triggers, because there's going to be news about a lot of those organizations that are coming out that are specifically relevant to what's happening right now. And you can use that to adjust the messaging as you target. So you left a couple examples in show prep. So can you share an example that resonated with you? I think you said there was one about yoga that resonated well with you.
Oh yeah. That goes back to the concept of an offer and what you can actually offer your buyers right now. So I'm a huge fan of Core Power, although I now live in Michigan and there aren't any Core Powers, but it's basically a yoga studio that I used to go to when I lived in Scottsdale. And they are offering free online classes now for everybody. Obviously there's a lot of good B2C examples out there. My local Chipotle, which thank goodness, I know I don't have a yoga, but at least I have a Chipotle. They're delivering now. They've never delivered before, but it's just those little things that it's like meeting your buyers where they are and knowing what can be valuable for them. I think B2B marketers can learn a lot from B2C marketers.
Yeah, for sure. And we've hovered around the concept of offers right now, and developing hyper value offers. That's something that can transcend the current environment, right? Have you seen any B2B examples that have resonated with you, or any customers, or maybe not even customers, it doesn't matter, anything that has really stood out to you?
Yeah, I think the one I mentioned earlier with WorkHuman, did I say the client name? Anyway, the WorkHuman is the company I was talking about earlier, where they're basically offering their employee recognition platform as a way to keep people engaged. I think that is a good offer. Office furniture. There's a lot of B2B office furniture companies that are targeting buyers right now, because now they've got work from home and maybe they want to order stand-up desks or whatever that looks like for their remote workforce. We work with a company who sells, they do managed services IT. So they packaged up all their hardware. They packaged up their hardware and their managed services offering into like a remote like work from home bundle for their employees, and they discounted it. So if you're a business and all of a sudden you've got a distributed workforce, they all need laptops, they all need, different software that they didn't have or that they had in the office. And so they've packaged up all of their products that can help these employees work from home into this bundle, and they discounted it. And they're offering that to the small businesses that they support.
Yeah, what I love about that is, if you think about ABM, right, it's not marketing. It really is a marketing and sales effort collaboratively. Mm-hmm. And if you create a focus on a hyper value offer that is helping you set your position in the market right now, that gives the sales team a charge as well. Because I can tell you from experience, talking to lots of sales executives and BDRs and things like that, they're afraid to call people. They're afraid to be insensitive. They're afraid to do this and do that. If we can collaborate with sales around this hyper value offer, and then give them those talk tracks to say, listen, this is how we're supporting the market, it makes an easier entry point. And the other thing it does is helps the sales individuals build goodwill in the marketplace and plant seeds that when we come out of this on the other side, the buyer remembers, oh yeah, that guy was helping, or that woman was helping me by providing this value, providing this offer that marketing can help bring forward. So I think that's a super important topic. Is account-based marketing is a little bit of a misnomer, because it doesn't really do much without your partners on the other side.
Yeah. And now is the time to, if you're in marketing, to be sitting with customer success, to be sitting with sales, to really understand the conversations that they're having. If you're a marketer and you've never been in sales, then you're going to have a harder time than marketers who have been in sales. But I would encourage you to sit with your sales teams, do ride-alongs, and just get as much info and be as close to the buyers as you can.
Yeah. Well, we're doing really well on time. We have 6 minutes. Doesn't have to be chat. If you want to chime in, chime in. What kind of questions, topics, ideas, anything that wants to be shared for the folks that are on the phone?
This is Christina. I just had another point to the conversation we were just having. I know a lot of, I work a lot with B2B and enterprise customers and companies, and a lot of them are actually developing very specific VIP workshops for their top customers. So they'll pick like their top 5. So again, they're not selling to them, and it can even be your prospects, but pick like top 5 or 10, and they have like an all-day VIP workshop that's them, whatever the topic is, but really sort of just make sure that they know that it's specific to them and trying to help them get through this process right now as well.
That's actually a great point, and a good opportunity for us to actually talk a little bit about something that we're doing right now to help our customers. That's actually something that our team is doing too, Christina, is we're offering a go-to-market workshop right now. Not just for customers, but really for anybody who's interested in basically going through a workshop, where we'll go through your go-to-market strategy and come back with a plan for marketing during crisis. So thanks for setting that up. I hopefully, because I would have totally escaped my mind, but now hopefully we can reach somebody who can get value.
For you, Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll share out the link to the Marketing and Crisis Guide. It does give some of those talking points that you can work through as an organization on your own. There's a workbook on the back end of that just gives you a framework to start thinking through some of these concepts and getting your own ideas on paper. And to Jamie's point, if that guide starts to spark some interest in you, we will absolutely help those organizations to workshop that a little bit further and to a deeper level. Anything else that anyone wants to cover while we have some really powerful minds here on the phone?
Jamie, I'll add on to one of your comments about ABM. So first and foremost, I'm in a small SaaS-based company. Josh and I have gotten to know each other. We have recently started an ABM strategy ourselves, and I think some of your points are really accurate in being intentional. And for us, we decided to start really small. So we have a list of just over 30 accounts. We've been using LinkedIn very heavily for that. So a lot of, targeted ads, very specific to people in certain job roles, knowing that ICP. So just to validate your point, we've seen a lot of success in generating MQLs just through investing in those kind of LinkedIn targeted advertisings with matched audiences. And also from an empathetic standpoint, I know we touched on that earlier. One of the things that we have done is just put together resource kits for COVID-19. We've developed specific blogs that we've shared with those ABM accounts about how to sell during a crisis. We're a sales enablement company too, by the way. And other things we've done, we even actually created an activity book that we targeted specifically to women that may be working at home with children. And so the offer was actually, hey, we know you're working at home with kids and that's tough. So we actually developed like a coloring activity book that they could print off and give to their kids. And we generated a decent amount of MQLs out of that. So I think, again, it doesn't have to be rocket science. You don't have to overcomplicate things. Sometimes it's easy to start small. We certainly didn't have a big budget, but we have seen success in just being intentional on ABM.
That's awesome. Very creative too.
Yeah, it is awesome. And think about the how much easier that conversation is for your seller who's making that offer on the other side, right? They look like
Absolutely.
A hero, and that's what we're trying to do, right? It plants a seed for a conversation way down the road.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
And then when you get more advanced, you can start investing in things like Sendoso and 6 Sense, where you can have intent data. And that's when it gets to those are real game changers. But to start and get a good foundation and establish that cadence and that relationship with sales, what you're doing today is perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
I have the opportunity to send people wine and ice cream and stuff. And so I've been sending a lot of wine since people are in quarantine right now. And I will tell you, my customers really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, if we do a quick recap here within the last minute, it sounds like regardless of its nurture and the concept of not setting it and forgetting it, or if it's account-based marketing on a budget, the foundation of all of this is really having a deep understanding of your buyer so that you understand what they're going through, not only just now, but all the time, because nurture should never be a set it and forget it. We should be constantly evaluating and looking at what those things are that are top of mind for our buyers and our customers right now. From an ABM standpoint, those ideal customer profiles probably aren't going to change as a result of COVID, but there's potential industry impacts. So how you want to message to different industries could be something that you want to evaluate and focus. And then keep it simple, be creative, come up with hyper valuable offers that either help the business or, to Dave's point, help the individual. Anything else? All right, everybody. I really appreciate you taking the time. I personally had a lot of fun. Hopefully it was valuable for you. We'll be putting this out on LinkedIn. It'll be up on YouTube. Share it out. I put the Marketing in Crisis Guide link in the chat, but I'll also put it in the YouTube link as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.